Hello, everyone. Thank you for clicking on my presentation. Um, so this is my behavior improvement project. I'll get started right away. So beginning with my workout goals, I kept it simple. I knew that I already were going to have some issues with time management. So I went ahead and kept it to 3 workouts a week, about an hour each. 2 of them are home Pilates workouts. One is on the mat, the second one using the Pilates chair. And my third workout is 1 hour of classical ballet bar at the ballet studio in between teaching my own classes and rehearsals for the Nutcracker performance that are coming up in 3 weeks. And on top of that, I would continue walking my dogs in the morning, 5 days a week. About 45 minutes is about 1.5 mile loop. And then I would also continue demonstrating in ballet class the exercises for my younger students. So that would continue doing my physical activity that way, adding the 3 workouts for exercise a week. So, moving on, the theories and techniques that I used over the last few weeks. Now, I started with self-determination theory, sort of built the project on that using the autonomy, competence, and relatedness, choosing Pilates and ballet, specifically both autonomy and competence. I know I could do these things. I have the knowledge, I can do it. Competence, autonomy, picking these things that I feel like I can do, and the relatedness to stay, in touch with the technique itself. So I was teaching it still, was teaching it well, and it also kept me very connected to the other teachers that I don't get to really work with a lot because they teach the older students, I teach the younger students. So jumping into their class kind of kept us connected as well. It also I told my fellow teachers that I was working on this project, so quietly, as much as they didn't openly and overtly keep me accountable for doing ballet class every week, they quietly just sort of acknowledged every time I came in, which was very helpful for me. But as the months went on, after reading about effective reflective, I started looking at the project more through that lens and really focusing on the constructs of pleasure, doing the exercise that I like, that does feel pleasurable for me, that I enjoy doing, and then reflecting on it. I used a journal for a couple weeks, but I wasn't able to keep up with it as much. But I found that focusing more using art versus SDT sort of kept me more motivated to stay with the project. Unfortunately, one week I went without exercise, time management. We'll get there a little bit later in the presentation. But what ended up happening was I was in a lot of pain after a week of not doing any exercise at all. So coming to social cognitive theory, I realized that the outcome expectancy for me in terms of a negative outcome expectancy was stopping exercise would lead to pain. So on the flip side, it became more of a positive outcome expectancy because it led me right back into the studio and right back to Pilates, trying to find ways to really implement all that exercise back in for every week so that this pain that I was feeling in my lower back would subside. I started using different techniques to try to get myself back into a routine. First, it was if-then prompts. Mostly I was coming home after walking the dogs and jumping right into schoolwork instead of doing a workout twice in the morning. So I would, if-then prompts, I started if I could finish a discussion post, I would then do the workout, which a couple times worked out very well in terms of timing, but most of the time it did not. So I turned to habit theory instead to try to change my cues. One thing that did work out very well, that was successful, was I started parking my car in a new place in the parking garage at the ballet studio. I would park near the stairs instead of near the elevator, and I would walk up the 2 flights of stairs to the ballet studio. Now, it helped that that week I was trying this new habit, the power went out for a little while at the building, so the elevators were shut down anyways for a day, and we all had to take the stairs. It was a great sort of jumping off point to begin changing these cues. But I did keep up with it, and I still am, which I'm very happy with. That was a successful change. I also started using more extrinsic factors like rewarding myself after doing a workout, mostly with what I call fun drinks, like a boba drink, or I get a second cup of coffee, trying to keep up with my water intake. But I do allow myself some fun things there. And giving myself a reward for working out definitely helped me keep up with my routine. So all of these, the habit and the intrinsic factors really is what brought me back to exercising again after that 1 week of not doing very well. The way I measured my success was really, I just logged my workouts in my calendar, and I look at my calendar probably 2 or 3 times a day. So seeing those workouts in the calendar or not in the calendar really just helped me stay accountable. And every day I would see this and be like, oh, I need to fit that in, or I didn't make it this week. And then like I said, I did try to journal. That worked out a couple weeks, but I wasn't able to keep up with it. But it was nice to use it for reflection purposes, things I needed to continue thinking about as a teacher, maybe, and what I was feeling in my body. But really just keeping a log in the calendar and then just assessing myself after a workout, before a workout, every day, just checking in with my own body to see how it was feeling really is how I measured my success and kept myself accountable to making sure that my exercise routine was on track. So outcomes, my biggest obstacle was time management, right? Finding time for these workouts were the most difficult part. Between classes and right now, in the holiday season, I work for 2 different dance schools. One is preparing for the holiday parade at Thanksgiving, and the second is preparing for Nutcracker performances. We do 4 shows and we do a full production with all of our students. So my weekends are taken up completely with class and rehearsal, and so are my afternoons after school. These are when all the students get to rehearse, since all of my students are younger. They're in high school or middle school, or particularly my group of dancers are all still in elementary school. They're about 7 to 10 years old. So between that, trying to find time for my own workouts was starting to get really difficult. So the way I really overcame that was I started working out with my students. One class I teach a week is Pilates to the older students. They're about 14 to 18. And usually I won't work out with them. I usually watch them. I give them verbal cues. I might help them physically with physical corrections, but I don't always do the work with them. But after a week of not doing any exercise and feeling that pain in my back, I decided I would actually do that Pilates class with them, lead them by doing it myself. And I found that this step brought me right into the autonomy supportive motivation, not only for myself, but actually for my students. I always ask them what they need and what what we need to be focusing on in class, specifically because the older students are doing so much dancing over the weekend. We want to make sure that their bodies are staying healthy, that they're still safe, we're preventing injuries. It's such a demanding time of year for them in terms of performance. So as much as we always talk and make sure, I noticed that when I started doing the work with them and started telling them not only where they should be feeling the work, what muscles are working, what muscles are stretching, where how your shoulders slide down, all of those things, as I started changing my language of this is how I know I'm feeling it in my body, maybe you're feeling it there, maybe you're feeling it somewhere else. I started seeing how much more engaged my students were and how more comfortable they were talking to me, not just in class about what was going on with their bodies, but also outside of class. Maybe something happened in class, their ballet class I wasn't aware of. They wanted to make sure that they were executing that movement right, depending on their body structure, or hey, I had that injury last week. How should I approach this? Um, those questions were really great. And I'm really glad that they felt comfortable coming to me, because I know sometimes as we get older, we're not as comfortable talking to our teachers about what's going on with our body physically. Sometimes these dancers would have rehearsals that were scheduled at the same time, so they weren't really sure, should I be going to this rehearsal or that rehearsal? Talking to a teacher to sort of figure out what the best strategy is can be difficult for the older students because they don't want to disappoint anybody. So having this now open conversation in class, I saw sort of led to that open conversation out of class. And that was really helpful for them to make sure that we're navigating this whole rehearsal process and performance process really well, safely. So I was really happy with that outcome. That result was really wonderful. It also kept me accountable. It put my body back into check, and the pain in my lower back subsided. But at the same time, now I was working with those students, and for them, for the older students, that was definitely more helpful. For the younger students, keeping my role as more of a teacher, demonstrating, stayed very much the same. That was great for them. Uh, so moving on to the reflection. This whole project, I actually really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. I think for me, staying focused on more of arts constructs like the pleasure, the enjoyment of the exercise, is really where I think behavior change can really start well. Um, Knowing that you like what you're doing is a great jumping off point to really dive into all this behavior change and adding exercise or physical activity to your day. So not only am I taking that for myself, but for others as well. I do like the constructs in STD of autonomy and relatedness. Those two parts of the construct definitely stuck with me as well. Moving from, when I started this project, I felt like I was really at more like introjected regulation on the STD scale of going from extrinsic motivation to intrinsic motivation. After taking the BREQ questionnaire, I found that my motivation actually did sort of rise through the scale, maybe only to identified regulation, but that felt really good to know that I was moving towards that intrinsic motivation, even if that wasn't where I'm ending. Like I said, staying focused on more of arts constructs of pleasure and reflecting seems to work for me better. SCT's outcome expectancy, that was a nice little surprise to know that no exercise means pain for me. And as much as for other people, feeling sore and feeling that pain after exercise might deter them from continuing, for me, it was the opposite. Feeling that pain meant I need to keep exercising. I can't stop. This does not feel great. Um, and then knowing that extrinsic factors like those rewards or changing my habits are really the ways for me to overcome obstacles and continue with my exercise. So if I come across anything more, in the future, I know that focusing really on changing cues so my habits can change, for my routine can change, and then keeping me motivated using rewards, maybe even music or changing the setting, maybe doing something outside instead of inside. Those are all things that can work so I can stay on track even past the end of this project. Thank you so much for clicking on my presentation. I hope you enjoyed it.